every time I talk to other business leaders about this, they look at me in amazement. In fact, I had a talk with a business leader just yesterday, and he wanted to meet for a beer. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to go with you, but I just want to let you know I'm not drinking beer right now. And he said, what the hell is wrong with you? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, and I'm here on a solo mission today while Tim, Arthur, and the rest of the team are at an alpha reset working with the men and having a fabulous time. I've been checking in with them as they've been going through their experience over there in Wales. But today I want to talk to you about why I made a decision to completely cut caffeine, more importantly to me, coffee, out of my life and really reduce, if not cut out, alcohol. And the reason I want to share this with you is because every time I talk to other business leaders about this, they look at me in amazement. In fact, I had a talk with a business leader just yesterday, and he wanted to meet for a beer. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to go with you, but I just want to let you know I'm not drinking beer right now. And he said, what the hell is wrong with you? It was his response, jokingly, of course, but he also was curious. And the reason he was curious is because he's been trying to reduce his alcohol intake for many, many years. Now, it's not a problem for him, like it's probably not a problem for you. But like a lot of business leaders, we tend to rely on this stimulus from the caffeine, right? My choice was coffee. Nothing better than that first cup of coffee in the morning. I'd get up early. I'd have the brew timed, the beans would grind, and I'd have that perfect cup of coffee for me, which is what I called cowboy coffee, right? It was so dark, almost a spoon would stand up in it. And it was a point of pride for me. People would come visit, they would stay at my house, and they would have to water down my coffee. And oftentimes when my in-laws would come, we'd have to make two pots, right? One for myself, and sometimes my wife would join me, and one for everybody else. And they would have probably normal coffee, but I would have such a strong coffee, and I just absolutely loved and savored the taste and the feeling that the coffee gave me. It gave me a feeling of power and energy that I could feel racing through my veins. And the flip side of that, though, of course, is I would also drink coffee in the afternoon, right? I would drink coffee as the day went on, and I would use it as an excuse. I would get tired, and I'd say, just another cup of coffee, or a cup of coffee sounds good. But I would also use it for a state change. So if I had a big sales presentation or a board meeting or meeting with my executive team, I would have an extra cup of coffee to have that extra pep to deliver the message that I wanted to deliver. And I started to become reliant on coffee. And then alcohol, I would use it the way that most of you use it. We kind of use it as a way to finish off the day. It's a depressant, right? It brings us down. We all know that. It also can lead to depression, but it's a depressant in the sense that it takes the edge off. I also used it very socially. As I said, I meet with a lot of business leaders. That's who my friends tend to be. And oftentimes we'll meet at a pub or a bar or go out for a beer to have a drink and just talk about life and what's going on. And also with my wife, we'd have a glass of wine with dinner, which may be often turned into 2 glasses. So never a problem, but at the same time, I also noticed that many people, including myself, were interested in reducing their alcohol intake as well as their caffeine intake. And I've stopped alcohol and caffeine many, many times before. In fact, most years I take a break from both of them independently just to make sure there's no issues going on there. In my family, there are some problems with alcoholism in my genealogy, so it's something that I definitely take a check-in going through. But the reason I share this with you is I made a change for a different reason. Like we talk about at The Powerful Man, we're constantly making investments in ourselves. Right? And I made an investment in taking a course through a company called BioCybernaut. BioCybernaut is a course that many of the men from The Powerful Man have been through, and it's brainwave training. You're actually training your brain. Now, part of the stipulation for this course, one is it's a lot of time. It's over a week, and it's very capitally intensive. It's $20,000 to $80,000 US to go. And part of it is they want you to stop drinking all caffeine. That means not even decaf coffee, right? Because decaf coffee still has caffeine in it. No caffeine and no alcohol at least 1 week before you go. And then while you're there, you also refrain from caffeine and alcohol and a few other things. So now I had got a reason, right? A reason to make a hard shift and a hard change. And when I stopped the alcohol, it was no problem. The caffeine, on the other hand, I could hear this little voice in my head going, oh man, you're going to be giving up coffee. Gosh, I love coffee. And alcohol was no problem at all. It was easy to transition out of just stopping drinking and just letting people know socially, happy to meet you at the bar, happy to meet you wherever. I'll get a soda water. It's not a big deal to me. I have no problem with that. But the caffeine really caught my attention because I hadn't realized how much coffee I had been drinking over the past year. My family, we moved across country twice, one on one side of the United States and then back again. And I was just driving. I drove our vehicles one time, and then we're flying to the UK for the Powerful Man and other business adventures. So I started to rely more and more on coffee in my day. And giving up coffee was actually quite difficult. But here's what I found. Now, and this is probably the most important aspect of this conversation, is on the other side of this. So now going on almost a month without caffeine or alcohol, and I would say very little alcohol because I've had a couple glasses of wine with my in-laws, and I am giving myself full openness, myself the ability to go out and have some drinks with the friends on Fridays and Saturdays, and I'll share why I picked those days with you as well. But I've noticed a definite change in my energy and energy management since giving up both of them. And what I've experienced that's been different than previous times is my sense of mental clarity is much higher. Now, the reason you can't have alcohol or caffeine while you're doing your brainwave training or alpha brainwave training, right? Alpha is the brainwave that we use when we're in a meditative state or when we're making high-level decisions, is because alcohol and caffeine, both of those actually reduce alpha waves. That's right. So these two drugs, right? There are drugs, whether you're taking tea or you're having a beer, they're drugs. Let's call it what they are. But they actually retard or reduce your ability to produce alpha brainwaves. Now, as high-performance men, alpha brainwaves are extremely important to us, right? They're very important. And so I didn't want to risk, continue to reduce those alpha waves. I've got a lot going on. I want to live the best life possible. It's one of the things we talk about at The Powerful Man. And so with that, I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself every advantage. Now, there's times that we do things to us, right? We go to the gym to work out. We're going to do biohacking. If you're into biohacking like I am, there's all kinds of things you put into your body or on your body to really make some changes. But increasing your alpha brain waves and reducing caffeine and alcohol is like taking sandbags off a hot air balloon, right? Instead of putting things in, like blowing hot air into the balloon, what reducing alcohol and caffeine was for me, to my brain waves and the way I feel, was analogous to taking these sandbags off of the hot air balloon to allow it much more ease and flow as it rises up. My wife would tell you that I'm much nicer, I'm more compassionate, I'm more centered, I'm less anxious, and I'm just more fun to be around. And which is not super surprising, although I give her some pushback on that, right? But at the same time, the reduction in caffeine is also made me more centered to make business decisions. And I always thought that, when I was drinking as much coffee as I was getting a lot done, and I was. But what I didn't realize, or at least I didn't admit to myself, was I was using that caffeine and it was kind of like a spike up, then a big drop down, spike up, big drop down, right? In energy and flow. And that's not a flow state. That's not a flow state of a powerful man. That's a state of somebody who's going back and forth and trying to achieve a result, but has to push through it. It's a fight, right? It's a fight when we drink a lot of coffee.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
And in this reduction, I've switched to a caffeine-free, so zero coffee alternative. Actually tastes pretty good. And it's been a great stimulus for me. So I can still do a bulletproof coffee type thing, but without the coffee, right? I use a coffee alternative, which I'd be happy to share with anybody listening to this. Just go over to the Powerful Man Facebook group and ask your questions. And I'll share my exact routine. But I've also noticed a drop in weight. a weight reduction, as well as I said, an increase in energy, libido as well, because I'm not really producing as much cortisol in my body, right? It makes sense from a physiological standpoint. But from a psychological standpoint, the reduction in caffeine has also increased my mood, and it's also increased my ability to focus. Again, this could be, part and parcel with the increase in alpha brain waves that I'm producing. It could be the same thing. I'm producing more alpha brain waves, therefore I'm more in a flow state. Like, they talk about a Zen monk, right? A Zen master, right? Has high alpha brain waves. And that's what we're trying to produce as men. You can train them. That's why I went to this training, to train them to be bigger. But I also don't want to spend all that money and time making my alpha brainwaves bigger, which I did, which is amazing. At the same time, I don't want to reduce or retard them, through just caffeine and alcohol, because it's become a habit for me, right? It's a cultural thing. You wake up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee. For business, I get asked all the time, hey, would you like to meet for a beer or a cup of coffee, or something along those lines? So very similar. Giving up alcohol, which seems to be the one that actually really intrigues most business leaders, that wasn't as difficult for me. But I understand the pattern. I've been in that pattern and that habit. And I've associated getting off work, so to speak, although I have a really flexible schedule, which makes that weird. But the idea of getting off work and happy hour to meet friends as being something that I do on a regular basis. And so with that association of having a glass of wine with dinner, or going out to meet a friend for a beer, or what have you, I've had to flip that on the head. And here are a couple things that I did that I thought might help you, because I've literally had probably 20 business leaders have found out that I've done this, and that I'm enjoying it, right? I'm enjoying this experience. Have asked me how. They said, hey, Doug, I'm trying to get to sobriety, really, was a big one. Or giving up caffeine sounds horrible. One person told me, Doug, I work at Microsoft. I'm an executive. This is a partner at Microsoft. And giving up caffeine and alcohol is it's part of the culture. You just can't do it. So here's some things that I've done. So with the alcohol, what I've done is, as soon as I get the craving, right? It's a craving that I'm like, oh, I really want to drink. I've tried to figure out, what is it I'm trying to achieve here? Like, what is it that I really want? Is it the flavor? Is it the buzz? Is it the reduction in stress? Is it the taste? What is it exactly that I'm trying to achieve socially here, or what have I associated it with? And then I replace that, right? And what's worked for me are, I've used stevia carbonated soda, Zevia to be exact, and I've replaced that. And so instead, I'll get up and I'll pour myself a glass of Zevia. I'll kind of say, hey, look, if you drink the glass of Zevia and you still really want to drink, go for it, man. And every time I haven't wanted it, the desire just hasn't been there, right? You just got to get over that little hump that's there. Also, we replace, my wife is pregnant, as if you've been listening to this show, So what we'll do is we'll pour it into a wine glass, and she'll have some as well. Or we'll do a ginger ale into a wine glass, or just sparkling water, something fun. And we'll make that kind of our new habit. And what I found is, I'm more available for my son, who's 2.5, my wife. I also just get a lot more work done, because the edge isn't there, right? I'm trying to take the edge off, but where the edge was from, part and parcel, was the caffeine intake, right? So I've reduced my I've eliminated my caffeine intake, and therefore the edge just isn't there to take off. And so it's been really fun to play with this and kind of play with myself and where I want to go with this new journey I'm on. And for many of you, I know you're relating to this, and most of the guys we talk to in The Powerful Man have a similar pattern, right? Caffeine or tea in the morning, as well as the afternoon, sometimes at night, and then alcohol to suppress it quite often. And some of you are binge drinking, right? You're going out on Friday or Saturday night, and you're just tearing it up. So it just really kills your body, and I've done it for years. And it really kills your body. And at the end of the day, what I've noticed is you become addicted to the cycle, right? You need caffeine the next day after you drink to pick you up, and then you need the alcohol to bring you back down. So you're self-regulating yourself in an unnatural state. You're not able to get in that true Zen-like flow during your meditation when you do this. And you're also scrambling. And as my wife said, I'm much more pleasant to be around. And when I met a business leader that wanted to meet for a beer, you know what we did? We went for a walk, and we had a more open and honest conversation, most definitely, than we would have had over a beer. And the reason I think it was is we were both very present in the moment. Yes, beer allows us the libation, allows us to open up and let our guard down. But the business leaders I talk to on a regular basis, we don't have that worry, right? Most of them have been through the Powerful Man program already. So they've taken off the mask, so to speak, and they're ready and they're already present with what they need to do. So changing that script, right? Exactly what the leader said. He looked at me and said, the business leader, he said, Doug, man, he's like, I really need to reduce my alcohol. Usually I'll have 1, 2, maybe 4 beers at night, and I could cut that back a lot. I really like to do that. And so I'm giving you some of the same ideas I gave him. Another business leader that I was talking to is doing a 30 days to sobriety program put out by Jack Canfield. I think that's fantastic. For me, it was a hard stop, right? How can you stop caffeine? Well, you can look this online. People say, hey, just start reducing your level of caffeine. I just went cold turkey. I went cold turkey and just stopped, felt lethargic for 2 days. And after that, I started to pick up again. So that was my methodology. I planned it out, but I also had an event to go to. So I was kind of painted into a corner the way I've done previously with doing something like ayahuasca, yahe, or some spiritual plant medicines. You need to clean up your diet. This is a very similar thing that you can do today. I'm a big fan of the cold turkey method because I think once you've made complete decisions, right, everything opens up for you. You put a line in the sand and said, look, on this date, there's no more caffeine, no more alcohol, and you move forward, right, for a time period. But I also gave myself an out. I gave myself a window and I said, look, just do it for 2 weeks. What's 2 weeks going to cost you, Doug? It's not a big deal. And you can, if you don't like it, you don't feel a change, just go back, right? What you did was working, but maybe this is better, and give it a shot. But what I found out, like you know already, is by going through this process, I was able to come out the other side. And a lot of that has to do with the work that we do at The Powerful Man. It has to do with going through your morning routines, making sure you're centered, making sure that you have it all together. But again, I want to share this with you so hopefully you, the listener, watching this can resonate and get the idea of ways that you can do it. If you're looking for a change in your diet and your spiritual practice, whatever that may be, on your relationships. So this is really across the board. We talk about in The Powerful Man with my health, my relationships, my wealth, and everything in between, as well as my business. It's been such a great experience that I wanted to share it with you guys. So gentlemen, what I invite you to do, if any of you are interested in taking this journey and taking this step, I know it's, for some of you are like, no way would I ever do this. And for others of you, you are interested and you've been trying to reduce your alcohol intake or your caffeine intake, or like me, probably both, for a long time now. You've known it's been something to focus on. What I'm going to recommend you do is go over to the Powerful Man Facebook group and go ahead and put your questions in there. Ask any questions you have. And if you haven't already, go over to thealphareset.com. That is thealphareset.com, and go over and watch the video that Tim's put together, because some of the psychology that's going to be available to you to make these kinds of leaps is going to be paramount in your success. All right, guys, that's it for me for another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I will see you next time. Have an amazing week.